I won't read all the slides, but data collection, data management, data analysis, data comprehension and interpretation, data application, and data ethics. So part of, once the initial draft framework was completed, they surveyed 210 experts, and these experts were around the world, because you can imagine with the 7 partners to this alliance are well connected and have a lot of industry experts, access to experts in industry, as well as across academia. So they surveyed 210 experts. Those who gave more feedback and validation and information were actually interviewed by the University of Mannheim, so telephone interviews. I think they were hour-long interviews. So it was a very rigorous process. And out of this came, I suppose, the first result from Work Package 2, which is competence profiles for instructional designers and e-trainers aligned with European qualifications framework. So you can see the long titles. And the EQF, I suppose many of you will know, I wasn't overly familiar with it, but it's an overarching framework in Europe to link together the national competency frameworks from various countries around Europe, and to bring some harmonization. So if you look at this, if you look at the first one there, data collection, so the statements would be know, understand, be able to obtain, access and gather the appropriate data and or data resources. The writing's quite small, so I'm not sure you can all read it. And that was carried through for each and all of the different dimensions. And they were mapped to the levels on the EQF framework. So some of them obviously are level 5 and then right through to level 7 for more complex statements. And out of this, some learning outcomes. So again, for the dimension data collection, for the statement I just read, you have to know, understand, and be able to do this. And if you look at, for the various roles, obviously there's going to be a lot of overlap between those who train or teach on online courses and instructional designers that design them. But where there's differences, they're called out. So for an instructional designer, it's very important to understand the sources of data that help you the scaffolding, I guess, to help you build pedagogically sound courses. And for somebody involved in facilitating or being a tutor on online courses, it's important to understand the analytics and data that you can access while the course is in process, so that you can make informed decisions about who you might need to engage with, or some personalization around talking to individual users based on how they're accessing the courses. So for Work Package 3 and Work Package 4, Work Package 3 was about assembling a curriculum for this MOOC I'll talk about in a second. So there's a lot of work. There's about 9 modules in the MOOC, 3 of them from the industrial partners, and then I think 3 or 4 from the academic partners. And then Work Package 4 was about the actual implementation and launching of this MOOC. So it started on the 21st of October. It's still open. You can all rush in to log in today and enroll. It's 68 hours. There is a lot of commitment there, but you don't have to. That's if you want to go through the certification. That's the estimate for the effort involved. There is a free certification. The whole course is free, but it's also something you can dip into if you wanted to find out more about maybe analytics in Moodle, or even to look at the theoretical aspects to the project. Based on the feedback, we have, I think, about 2,000 enrollments and active learners within the course at the moment. Based on feedback from that, we will probably then look to launch another MOOC, maybe shorter duration, if duration becomes an issue, later on in maybe early next year or later this year. So it's about the theory and the practical. So on the practical aspect was a number of scenarios were posed about how these competencies could be used in the real world. And again, it was up to my team from the Moodle perspective and the teams from the other industry partners to try look at what tools were available within the products to address those needs. So from theoretical perspective, I'm just conscious of time, yeah, okay. Theoretical knowledge, UPRC were involved in the educational data aspect of it, and that's Demetrius Sampson and his team. Norwegian Technology University around the learning analytics. University of Mannheim were then the teaching analytics, how to interpret this data. And then from the point of view of the industrial partners, ourselves looked at Moodle, the Tanzio Learning with their exact suite, and IMC around the IMC Learning Suite. So there was also top and tail. There was an introductory module which outlined the syllabus, and the last module was about, I think there's a quiz, a number of questions, and from that, I think you answer survey questions as well, and from that you get your certificate of achievement. So what it looks like, if you take one of the topics here from a site level reporting looking at Moodle, It looks at the various reports that are available from Moodle. Inspire Analytics is discussed in some detail as well. Some of you may be familiar with all of these. GDPR is important because consent and how you interpret data and how you use data is very important. One of the strongest features of Moodle, you may know, is the GDPR plugins and functionality. So those are explored in some detail as well as part of understanding how data is managed within Moodle. And then some third-party tools. So we have IntelliBoard, who are premium partners for Moodle. They have a very comprehensive suite of reporting and dashboard tools that you can build into Moodle or you can access through their portal. We talk about configurable reports. Some of you may know it's a plugin that allows you some element of being able to create your own reports. Obviously, you need some experience in SQL to be able to do that. We talk about third-party tools, some of them developed by ourselves and others that are available. But all of this is about exploring the functionality within the LMS to help you interpret, access data, and to be able to manage it essentially. So that's it. I think I'm 45 seconds left. So we felt that this project had relevance across a broad spectrum of the market. So from a research perspective, to look at teaching and learning analytics, higher education, obviously, that they can enhance the curricula for their programs in this area. For the e-learning industry, like for us, it's important that our instructional designers would have relevant qualifications, and now to see that education data literacy has been embedded or will be embedded within those programs is important. And then finally, from a market and workplace, if you're an instructional designer, if you're involved in e-training, I suppose it's important that you can demonstrate through competencies, through certification, that you have the wherewithal to be able to work with data analytics. And I think that's me done, 15 minutes.
Yes, we have 5 minutes for questions.
Hey. And so there you go. So look, as I said, if you have questions of an academic nature, I'm probably not the best person to answer it, but I know a man who can, so I can obviously put you in touch and get answers to any questions you might have. So is there any questions? All very clear? Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Will the MOOC stay open beyond December?
I believe so. I believe it will remain accessible, but the certification process and all the rest and the facilitation will stop at that stage. But I'm not 100% sure, but I imagine it will for a while. Anything else? So if any of you are involved in this area of instructional design or e-training, or indeed some of your colleagues, it would be great if you could point them in the direction of these resources. The website is learntoanalyze.eu. I think it was on one of the slides there. And if you go there, you'll find a lot of the results as well. So there's quite a few academic publications that you can learn more about the project and about the process they went through, the research and so on. And it's quite interesting, a lot of interesting material there.
Have you touched the money data?
Pardon?
Money data. This is the teacher's tool.
It's not about the tool. It's about the project is about developing competency profiles. Okay, so enhancing existing ones and adding in dimensions to cover education data literacy. The tools, the MOOC is built on IMC's Open Courseware platform. Okay, but the tools are discussed. So it's IMC's platform, Natanzio Learning Platform, and Moodle are just modules, and they discuss what tools are available within them. Okay.
For the student, is it discussed the student perspective?
It would be because the scenarios. There's actually a video as well that I skipped through that you can look at online, which it tells you the different scenarios that they're trying to cater for. So it's looking at how a student interacts with the systems, but then the tools is about how you interpret the data that you gather from their interactions with the system. So it's more about how teachers and instruction designers can use that data. Sorry if that's the question. Yeah? Anything else? So, thank you for your time. Okay, hope you enjoy the rest of the MOOC. Thank you.
A few things to think about as you're going through these presentations. Our hashtag for the Moot is #GlobalMoot19. So we really welcome you to share some of the slides or some of the pictures or some of the information from each of the sessions.
Oh yeah, probably the microphone.
So our next speaker for today is Learning Design for Moodle, innovation from 2 research universities. And I would like to welcome Thomas Corner for our next presentation.
Thank you very much. As life is going, as you see, I have 2 logos on the screen. Clive Young was meant to be here, but he had some problems, some issues back home at UCL, so we agreed that he will join us via Zoom. Yeah, obviously there's another problem this morning, so he didn't show up and I'm here alone. Please forgive me if not everything is really prepared because I do some kind of PowerPoint karaoke on his part. So let's have a look. Learning design for Moodle. For universities, there are some issues you probably know if you're not belong to a university, but some problems are quite typical. This kind of, as Martin mentioned this morning, you know, I'm a researcher. I do not really have time for doing courses, and I know that online courses take a lot of time to prepare, so sorry for that, but I do not have time to do that. And the other things like updates, teachers normally don't like Moodle with our university. I don't know, but it's linked with the work they have to do. I don't know. And we just thought, both of our universities thought several years ago that there should be a kind of a process to approach this issue. And we ended up with a process which is quite common, probably. So it is kind of a cycle. You start with some designing a course, then you teach the course, you do an evaluation, and after an exchange phase, you go to a next iteration. This is something which is quite common for researchers, and thus it worked quite well with our institutions. And I would like to show you now some examples what the UCL did to fulfill some of the needs in this circle, and what we at ETH did to fulfill some other parts of this circle. Yeah. So at UCL, they started a program called ABC. They tried to make a standard process to revamp a course or even to create a course. So there's a their workshop with 90 minutes. They invite all the people involved in the course. It is analog, that's on purpose. And they discuss about what is the course is looking at the moment, what do you want to achieve in the course, and what do we do actually in the course. That's the first phase. In the second phase, they are thinking about, okay, what should we do, where should we go to, and how could we achieve that goal. And as you can see here, a course is normally kind of this big sheet, and they put some activities on it, which are basically at the moment in the course. There's a color code, so for learning, for interaction, for discussion, for writing, for researching, things like that. And they put it on this big sheet and have a look. Okay, yes. Oh, probably we do only have during the whole term we have half an hour of discussion. Probably that's not the good way to do it. Probably we should consider doing something else instead of that. And then they are changing what's on this plan there within this 90 minutes and end up with some kind of a plan what to do. Because on each of these small sheets put on the page, there's what's all about, what are the learning goals, and you have some help on it with some learning tools or learning concepts, how you achieve these kind of things. So, for example, if you're searching for competences in discussing, then you have, okay, if you're with Moodle, then think about using a forum, think about using a workshop, think about using this or that. So 2 things on this sheet. On the one hand, this kind of analysis, you may call it decompose of a course, then think about where we want to go to, and at the end, recompose the course. But for sure, that's only the analog part. After that, the work begins in reality. As you can see here, Clive Young and his team already had about 1,000 participants in these kind of workshops within UCL. Here in detail, as you can see here, yes, that's probably another interesting thing. When you decompose your course, you do this kind of a spider, where you see, okay, where is the strength of my course, and where am I probably weak? And you end up with this acquisition. So acquisition of information probably is a little bit, well, near to the center, could be a little bit higher up there. So we should think about what to do to improve this kind of skill if I need it. That's probably an interesting part of the whole discussion. There are some courses which probably focus on several items of this spider. So you do not really have to reach every edge of this spider circle. And as you can see here, there is, I assume that's one of the courses not belonging to Moodle, but to analog courses. And then you have some verbs here describing what would help you to achieve this goal. So, if you're familiar with learning goals from Bloom or any other concept, you know this kind of arrangement of verbs and learning goals. And at the end, it can look like this. So they did an analysis and then thought, okay, yes, probably these three parts fulfill some similar things. Probably we should add some kind of production here. And as you can see here, that's a kind of a learning timeline. So starting point is here, introduction, and we end up here with the kind of the final assessment or thing like that. That's kind of normal. Clive Young was with us at ETH earlier this year, and we did some decomposing of our course in a workshop, in a testimonial workshop. And yes, they look like this at the end. You're quite happy if you did it, because if you have to read it without being there during the 90 minutes, you could end up being kind of, struggling. And that's a kind of a summary. The resources are all common shared and available for everybody. So there is an introduction presentation within, a card set, storyboard, and so on and so forth. Some optional resources, even some kind of guides as doc file and as video file. And it's a part of an EU project they're in, and they're sharing it to the public space. And that's, by the way, that's my colleague who cannot attend, that's Clive, so at least he's in one picture here in my presentation. They are planning to do an integration into Moodle and some other unimportant learning management systems. Within an EU project, an Erasmus Plus project. That's one of these PowerPoint karaoke parts, which I would skip at this time. You will find the mail address of Clive, so feel free to ask him. The idea behind probably will be just this kind of sharing of the focus of these ABC workshops. What you see here is a kind of a summary, what's possible, and I will share the slides at the end, and then you can read it. But what you can see, all the points in blue and violet are Moodle things, yes, and these are some external part like Scorm or Hot Potatoes, so third-party application, and that's the idea behind. You go for what you do, and then you have a focus what is possible, and you have these kind of 3 steps with complexity to reach your learning goal. So, coming back to the ETH Zurich, we are a technical university with about 20,000 students and 16 departments. And we have a very great variety of teaching methods. We have with us classical STEM, like Moodle, like biology, like physics. But we also have architects with us, military science, and some other things. And if you try to adapt or to ask for use a special learning culture, you would end up in some unhappy departments. And therefore, we thought as a strategy we should enhance learning and teaching without losing this very specific learning culture. And therefore, we thought, okay, we have to go to the departments and support them, what they are doing, while being connected with us, with some kind of strategy where we want to go to. And therefore, several years ago, our rector established a called Network of Education Developers. These are people, learning experts, who are working at the departments. Normally, they come out of the departments, so there is an architect in architecture, a biologist in biology, and they're quite well known within the departments. They know how learning and teaching works there, but they're also co-founded from the central unit. So they're close connected with us. They know what's going on. They initiate some projects together, and therefore there is this kind of experts at a specific topic in the department and experts of learning how ETH Zurich wants to drive the learning forward into a digital age. These are the guys pictured took this early spring, I think. All of them are very well established in the departments. So we can cross the border of, well, these guys at the central unit, they probably know how learning works, but they for sure do not know how it works with us, because we are Department of Biology and here is everything different. They can cross the border and they have some capabilities to support the teachers in creating the course, even in teaching. And that makes it very easy for them to really approach a good forward strategy to improve digital learning. As I mentioned, the collaboration with us is quite important. And a last thing, which is some kind of interesting, we have additional 12 people who are thinking about how to innovate learning and teaching. We are, at the moment, 10 people within the innovation management, our main purpose is to do that. But that's kind of an additional network. They're going to conferences. They are seeing things, ideas, tools, and bring it back to ETH and propose it to kind of pilot these tools and think about whether they could fit. A last thing, and that's especially for the exchange phase, we have established a monthly workshop over lunchtime called Refresh Teaching. The basic idea is a peer-to-peer event. So teachers who are using Moodle or another great tool coming there and telling their colleagues what they're doing. And since we do that, the rate of people who are coming to this event and the thing they're taking with them improved quite well. So it is obviously important that professors really like to hear from other professors what is good, and not only for the centralized learning experts, because they're not experts in the topic. And second thing, common knowledge. Don't focus on the tool, focus on the teaching technology, on the teaching concept. So we end up in this circle with some things like the ABC workshop in the design phase, probably in the exchange phase, where people come together, have a look, what should we change within our course. We have the education developers. We are just in this kind of design and realization phase, acting, and the refresh teaching at ETH, which is the part of the exchange phase. Evaluation is something normally done by central unit, but not with specific focus on the learning technology. we are actually thinking about introducing ABC at ETH as well, just to close this gap on the top from the exchange to the design. So that's it in short. Here you find the mail address of Clive and the URL for all the content. So it's ABC Workshop or abc-ld.org. And if you have any questions, I'm here. Yep. Yeah, thank you. As far as I know, they are working on that at the moment at a partner in Poland, a partner university. And as far as I understand, Clive, I didn't see anything. But what he told me is that there will be some kind of online tool within Moodle where you can analyze it. But now it's going to be really noisy, my knowledge. Yeah.
Very nice use of templates of the HTC. Are the students involved? So are you going to ask the learner what in the initial phase, for instance?
I can give you the answer what we are planning to do. Yes, we are planning to do that. I remember Clive told me that they have both of the concepts. So normally, the normal approach is talking with lecturers and connecting the lecturers. But I completely agree. At least 1-2 students should sit on a table. And it's not enough just to take the evaluation results into consideration, but really let them act on the redesign. Completely agree. Yes, please.
Those 1,000 teachers, I
Yep.
believe, were they voluntary or?
I can just tell you what he told me. At the beginning, they had some voluntary teachers, 50, 100 at the end, something like that. And then it made kind of an automation which started. So there were a lot of departments who thought, oh, well, that's quite a good job they did there. Probably we should think about doing this other course as well. And then they probably forced the lecturer there. But at the end, as he told me, nowadays it's kind of a good practice to revamp your course. So I assume, yes, most of them are voluntary there. A last question? So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, just like your refresh lunch and learns, I think that's what the mood is all about. When we're in these 5-minute breaks, we will be switching people because people are following along, and that's why, as chair, I'm trying to keep everything right on time in between the sessions. I'm also going to ask if you notice that there's a gap beside you, if you could just move over, because what's happening is that people are coming in just as the speaker is getting started, and we're just having to turn people away. So if you could please be mindful to fill in the gaps in the seating, that would be wonderful. And we're just getting set up for our next speaker. If you are waiting in the wings, please come on up and get your presentation ready. We'll get started in 2 minutes.
And please use the mic because they're on screen.
I'm going to do all the time, 15 minutes, and then
Not the sleeping.
Okay, and so you're next, and you have everything ready. Can you please check in that picture? Come on up this way.
Afternoon, folks. If I could get anybody who's sitting on a door side to scooch down towards the aisle so that as more people come in, you'll be able to fit in. So if there's a gap to you in the middle, move 1 or 2 seats down, please.
So now we're going to start a few of our PICO sessions. So those sessions go for 7 minutes, and then we have 3 minutes for questions. So there might be some quick turnarounds for questions and for switching our next presentation. So please help me welcome high-stake exams with Moodle BYOD using Safe Exam Browser. Please help me welcome Hugo Ribeiro.
So, morning. Thank you for coming to this session. So I try to be very quick, but I would like to introduce our experience in high-stake exams using Moodle. So we've been doing it since 2009, and we have trying to train our teachers using multiple choice questions in a pedagogical way, but also on the quiz activity itself. So we do for some teachers the questions import, so that they don't have to be like 8 hours a day importing questions. So that's what we do for them also. We also work with IT department to have a secure digital environment, and whenever it's possible, we are on site supporting teachers and students. The main task in this presence is to calm the teachers and the students mainly. One thing that we did on our Moodle installation, we asked for the teachers to tell us what type of quiz are they doing. Because at one point we were dealing with telephones just telling that their quiz went down actually. And we were not even aware that was a quiz doing, a high-stake quiz taking place. So we asked them to do this form and to tell us also if they needed local support. Of course, they say yes, but we ignore them most of the time. We are a team of me, so one person. These are the numbers from the last 2 years. The on-class summative, the quiz that we supported on site, and the summative that can be taken anywhere. So students are at home doing their summative quiz. So just a few numbers. We found some constraints because of the low student computer ratio, okay? And also because of the huge amounts of quiz taking place. So our response, it was to use Safe Exam Browser. Does anyone know what Safe Exam Browser is? Okay, that's fine. So it just transforms any computer to a kiosk. So you are enabled to use, for instance, the URL and to use any other applications, if you will. So what we do for the teachers the configuration of the quiz, because that we find that it's kind of hard for the teachers, and we do have 3 security levels. the first one will only check if the student is using the safe exam browser. If so, he is allowed to do that exam. Then we have the a medium instance in which the Moodle will compare the configurations that the student is using, okay? And on the last, we can use the same thing, plus filtering the URL. So that this allows that the student can go to another course and to cheat, if that makes sense. We also send the instructions for the students using the Moodle announcements forum. Of course, we are in Portugal, so the students ignore these instructions. And this leads to a whole lot of problems. So, the few challenges and doubts that we have at this stage is the university prepared to have a laptop mandatory for the students? We, as a university, have to think that we need to have a plan B. So if a student can't have a personal laptop, we have to find a plan B, okay? Also, the Wi-Fi availability, of course, there are issues with that, but should we allow the students to use their own private internet providers, okay? Is there an issue with that? I don't think so. So, again, has a plan B, if the EduROM fails, should we allow them to use that? And, of course, the students failing to follow instructions. Like I said, we're in Portugal, so if we don't follow any instructions, you are still going to do the exam. Is this a problem? Well, I have mixed feelings, but maybe we have to tighten our rules at this stage, because if we are talking with about an exam that has a 30-minute limit, we can take like 1 hour and more to take the exam. So the logistic burden, it's a lot, because each computer is different. Each student doesn't know how to use a computer. They know how to go to the Facebook or Twitter. So that's an issue. So these are the conclusions, and these two are the next step. We should already have a sample quiz in which the students could take a dummy quiz just to check if their installation it's good or not. And we do need to go for an iPad usage. So just right on time, I think. So any questions or comments are welcome. Oh, sorry.
Quick question about, you mentioned you had different kinds of settings for SEB. How do you distribute this to the students?
Yes, I have a link. At this stage, I put it on a web page, and it's openly available. We used to send them also on the announcements forum, but we found that the students end up going throughout the webmail, so they are not logged in. So that on the logistic part, it's also an issue, a bigger issue. So now it's openly available, and you have passwords, so I don't think that's a problem.
So you generate one for each quiz?
Yeah.
Okay, that's how it works.
Yeah. The logistic burden, yeah.
Do you have any challenges with lost data because of Wi-Fi or browsers crashing or anything like that?
Yes, sometimes, but the numbers are quite good in my opinion. Between what concerns me is whenever the student is on the quiz already. And on this case, that usually doesn't happen. It does happen because Sabbath's kind of tricky and sensible. Sometimes there are issues starting the exam, but when they are doing it, that's fine. So, but we do have in mind a paper quiz if needed. So, any more, Sam? Oh.
I don't know whether you checked the roadmap, but there is a bigger project going on with Luca and I for core development, where the safe exam browser will be integrated quite deeply. So Moodle will provide a config file to students, and teachers or administrators will manage the config file or even the configuration itself in Moodle as a quiz part.
Yeah. I've seen it.
The Moodle partner Catalyst, who does the development, started working last Thursday, and we are contracting HQ to do it by 3.9.
Wow. Great.
The wonderful thing about Moot is that we have a lot of social events. So these conversations may start here, but please make sure that you take time during our breaks and evening entertainment to continue the conversation. We're going to move on to our next PICO session, and we are going to be learning all about e-lectures within Moodle and integrating Moodle and Opencast. Please help me welcome Tobias Freischmann.
Hello. Yeah, very much. Thank you very much for the introduction. I would like to show you our integration of Moodle and Opencast. Opencast is an e-lecture system which allows you, basically to record the lectures within your lecture room through a camera, something like that. And it has some advantages to use that within your within teaching, within your classes. It enables students to do part-time studies. It allows what? Louder? Oh, sorry. It allows to compensate for sickness, enables new teaching techniques such as reverse classroom or something like that. There's plenty of research on that. Still? Okay. Sorry. And it allows for OER content, so you can share your lectures with others. Lectures can be reused. You don't have to use hold the same first year class every time, but you can put your time in more to more enhance your teaching through e-assessment or something. But from my point of view, this e-lecture should be best included into the LMS, into Moodle, to be alongside with all the other content. So you can combine the e-lectures with other content, with assessments, and something like that. And it offers the students just one platform and not multiple. So when I was a student, I had like 3 different LMS, and I know what this felt like. And having just one LMS is a huge advantage from my perspective. And you see here already how you could currently include an Opencast e-lectures within your Moodle course. And this also improves the quality of the videos you can offer within Moodle, because the native Moodle player, for example, just offers one resolution and not multiple. The players have limited possibilities. You can offer only one stream and not multiple. Through our integrations, you can not only include videos from Opencast to your course, but you can also, as a teacher, manage all your videos. You can also show videos which are lectures which are held in the future, so you can you get an overview. You can set the visibility of all these videos you have there. You can restrict the access from students. You could, if you have groups in your course, also restrict the availability based on group level. You also have the possibility to upload new videos. So not only use the videos which were recorded in the lecture room, and you can add metadata to that. So create a title for that, select a suitable language, select a suitable license for that, like Creative Commons, so maybe it could be reused by other teachers or just made publicly available, and you're able to upload multiple streams, like one showing you as a presenter and one showing the slides for the students. Yeah, and you can also delete videos if you don't no longer want them to be in the eLectures platform. From my point of view, how the future should look like, what the real neat integration would be, that you also could just drag and drop a video into the Moodle course. It's all automatically embedded into your course in the background. It is uploaded into your video platform like Opencast. So also the teachers do not have to have in mind that there are two different platforms. So you can really use the eLectures platform just as a backend. It does not necessarily have to be Opencast. It could also be Medial or Kaltura or whatever you would like to use. However, for such an extension, I think there would be changes in Moodle core necessary. And yeah, to reach that, from my perspective, we would have to make videos more first world citizen into Moodle, because currently it's not. Currently you have to store huge video files within your Moodle data. And I don't know what upload limits you have in your installations. We have like 100 or 200 megabytes, which is not even close to the sizes of a full e-lectures, what a full e-lecture would be. So including your, so summing up, including your Moodle with an e-lecture system has huge advantages. If you would like to contribute to that, or just be updated with what is happening, we have in Germany or in the DACH community a Moodle, a Google group. We have monthly meetings on there through Blindspot. You could just come by once, talk to us. The plugins we are currently developing are conceptualized and developed together. You can put into any resource you would like. So just give some ideas, or give some development time, or give some funding, whatever you like. Yeah, we would be happy to see you there. Yeah, I think I was a bit too fast. So we have 1 more minute for questions. 3 minutes? No, okay, just 3 minutes. Any questions?
Just out of curiosity, how many rooms do you have equipped with cameras and microphones?
I think 14 to 20, about that. Do you know an exact number?
It should be around 20 something right now.
Yeah.
I'm working on extending it towards further lecture rooms at the moment.
But we also cannot equip every room, so that's why we added the upload, that the teachers can also just record the videos themselves and upload them to the course, so that if they have a lecture in a room which is not yet equipped, they still can use the integration. Other questions? Yeah?
So currently you store the videos on MoodleMoot.
No, we did so until we had this integration. So Opencast is runs on other servers. It has its own storage. So the videos are stored there and delivered from there to the user. We deliver them through a combination of LTI and just embedding it as an iframe. But the videos are stored there, stored in multiple encodings, and delivered from the Opencast system through Moodle.
So is the storage a commercial model?
No, it's open source. Sorry, Opencast is open source, so everyone can use it. Everyone can create their own installation. Yeah.
Storage is free.
At the storage, you have to provide the storage yourself. So it's just the software. You have to create a server for that yourself and provide the storage for that also yourself. Yeah?
How are the videos shared? Is it the URL or is it, do students need to be connected to the platform to be logged in to have access to the videos?
Currently, there are multiple different possibilities how you could connect Opencast to Moodle. We are right now using LTI, so you basically log in via LTI on Opencast. Opencast asks back to Moodle if the user is logged in there, and through such a combination, you're ensured that the user has the access rights to really access the video. Other questions? That's not the case. If you have some, yeah, just meet me and ask me, or write an mail.
Excellent. And thank you as you're exchanging seats and switching sessions. If you could make sure that there isn't a gap beside you and in the seating, and that way we can more easily bring people into our room. During our breaks and over the lunch time, I encourage you guys to have a look at the different booths. We have our Moodle Users Association booth right outside here. So as you're heading out to the doors, they're right there to your left. And also to check out all of our sponsors and the amazing information that they have. And it's a great time to ask questions and to just learn more as we go through this Moot and these next few days together. Another reminder about the party that's this evening. There is a treasure hunt that will lead us to our 70s inspired party. So looking forward to seeing many of you there this evening. We're just finishing up the last little bits to get the next presentation going, and we'll be starting in just 1 minute. For our next presentation, we are going to be hearing from Kathy Fortin, and we're going to be looking at e-case study on finding the right LMS and how Moodle stacked up against the commercial LMS platforms. Please help me welcome Kathy Fortin.
Hello. Can you guys hear me? Is it good? Okay. So, I'm Catherine Fortin, and I am from California. And I was working on a project with a large company that is global, but a little bit about me. I've been working with Moodle and in the e-learning industry for over 10 years. And originally, I was the employee 16 at Moodle Rooms, so I've been around a while. If you want the slides to this, you can take a picture of this and I'll send you to the website. You can just send us your email address and I'll send you the PDF of the slides. You guys ready? So, what are we trying to solve here? With this company, they had two failed, let me jump ahead here, two failed LMS systems already. They're a large company, over 450 stores, and their current LMS, they could only train people in the stores, not in the corporate, so there was a lot of complications with what they were doing. 3 years ago, they brought me in, and I went through a ton of interviews to be their LMS solution architect. And in one of the many interviews, the last one I was in, they had told me they were going with Cornerstone. And I had told them, Cornerstone's not going to work for you with what you want to do. And I didn't know it then that I was in front of the Cornerstone proponent internally in the company. And of course, I wasn't hired. 3 years later, they call me because Cornerstone didn't work, imagine that. And so they hired me to help them go through the process of finding an LMS that actually fit their needs instead of choosing one ahead of time. So why now? Their current platform had zero ability to do personalized microlearning. Current training was very redundant because they couldn't break it up. They couldn't use groups. There were no cohorts. There were no learning paths. For you guys that all have used Moodle, that's surprising, but yes, you cannot do that in Cornerstone, which is one of the biggest corporate LMSs in the US at least. And they couldn't use their LMS for both corporate and their store training. And the biggest problem was their customers are coming in with a ton of knowledge. They're getting it from YouTube, they're getting it from Instagram, everywhere. So their store employees, or that they call cast members, need to know more than the customers coming in. And these employees are trained daily. There's daily tasks, there's weekly, they're all certified in specific brands, how to help the customers. So they need to be at the top of their game. So the current challenges with the LMS is they had to hire a HTML developer to customize every single page for a user interface. There was no user interface. It looked like a directory tree, and I'll show you that in a second. There was no course catalog. There was no ability for anybody to browse around and decide what training they would like. There was no way for a manager to browse around and assign training. So there were a lot of problems. The feedback, they had to link into SurveyMonkey for any feedback, because there was no feedback capabilities. This is what Cornerstone looked like when you log in. This is what their HTML designer did every single day. So this is the process they'd have to do just to get the training into the system. So it was a collaborative process. Their training team had over 20 people on it full time, including a Unity developer. Their training is the top that I've ever seen in any company. It was really, really impressive. So what do you think might be on their LMS wish list? What they were looking for that they did not have is personalized mobile training. They had zero ability for mobile. They wanted to create micro learning bites so they could train and deliver training within that moment, or at least within the day. The current process was more than a day to get it to people. And with the products they had, there was new, especially seasonal, they would get information from vendors at the last minute, and they'd want to get the training into the hands of the store employees, and they weren't able to. They wanted training accessible from all in-store devices. They could only use the back office computer for training, so everybody would huddle around it like it was 1995 and do their training every morning. And if you were lucky, there were two back office computers. And this is today. And the store crew could not do training during their shift because they'd have to go into the back room to do their training. So there was no, if it was quiet, they could pull up the training and get some of it done. So when I started working with them, this is what we worked to get down to what they were really looking for. So I was brought in to help them find the solution. And the biggest problem was, since they had 2 failed attempts already, was to untrain how they were trying to find the solution, how to find a new LMS. So we need to rework the way that they were trying to. They were looking at their current workflow, which was very antiquated because they had to have a lot of workarounds to get the data into the system and get it to look nice. So there was a lot of reworking how they did things and how they described things. Their internal language for training was not industry standard. So we couldn't even send out an RFP to ask LMS companies to submit a proposal without me going through and reworking all the language. This is what the process was after I finished it. It took me a while to break down the entire workflow, but if you have the money to do it right, this is what we did. The yellow boxes were specifically added in because of Moodle, and there was a lot of breaking down and explaining how Moodle worked compared to your regular corporate LMS, or really any LMS, because in higher ed, Moodle still is quite different than the competitors. Any questions so far? So I've got 16 hours of data that we're going to get through in 15 minutes. So buckle up. 7 minutes now.
What convinced them to choose Cornerstone? This is the secret.
Oh, they had Saba before that.
Okay.
So, yeah, exactly. But the big thing is nobody had ever heard of Moodle. Which is very interesting because, we're in this Moodle bubble, and we know that Moodle is the biggest, most globally used LMS. But in the corporate world, nobody, no manager, nobody in the training department, no VP, nobody had ever heard of Moodle or Totara. So when I walked in looking at the list of the LMSs they were thinking of going with, I was like, you guys are missing 3 that you should be looking at: Totara, Moodle, and Adobe Captivate Prime, and based on what they were looking for. So these are the functional project goals that they wanted at the end of this project. They wanted to be able to increase frequency of login. A lot of people were very frustrated with the login process. It was not easy to get into the LMS. They wanted to up completion of training, eliminate all the manual linking, which was pretty insane how much manual linking, not only to SurveyMonkey to get any kind of feedback. They were linking outside to various repositories because the LMS could not hold everything. So when I came in, which was a year ago, this is some of the data that they were working with to find an LMS. When I walked in, they had gone through over 80 LMS systems. Does anyone know how many LMSs are out there today?
I didn't realize the
There's over 800. I was at DevLearn, and there was 5 on the floor of DevLearn last month that I had never even heard of. But what some of these do, it's pretty crazy that they can even stay in business, because some of them have like 0 reporting, can't run a SCORM. I was like, how did you make it? But these were the 13 that made it to RFP. I took a few off that aren't on this list, and I added the 3 that I had said. So these are the 3 that went to RFP. This is the technical and business functional requirements that we were weighting and ranking all the RFP responses against. And let's get into some of the data. So these are the 6 that made it into the on-site demo phase out of the RFP. So as you can see, Moodle, Miyagi, Docebo, and Big Tin Can are at the top. Again, in delivery, Moodle's second. Moodle's number one in reporting. It seriously is. I've worked with over 20 LMSs in the last few years, and nothing tops it.
The pure Moodle Pro
Yes.
reporting.
Yes. So if you add, yeah, all these other ones with Cornerstone and Docebo, if you want any kind of custom reporting, you have to submit a support ticket, ask them for what they want, hope that their support system actually can understand, and hope that you actually get the report back that you're looking for. And a lot of times the problem was that they would get back a PDF, so they couldn't even manipulate it. And it was a back and forth, back and forth. So at this stage, Moodle was 1/100th of a point away from number one. The overall, which I have to move a little quicker, Moodle is still at number one right now. So what the data told us out of the RFP was these vendors were out. Toter was out for one reason. The mobile app, they stopped using the Moodle mobile app and they created their own. It did zero caching. So because of that one technical spec, they were out. It was really important. So going into the on-site demo, these were the 6 companies that made it. And this is the information we all sent out with clear instructions. The post-demo findings. As you can tell, let's get down to the bottom here. Big Tin Can is number 1. Miyagi's number 2. Moodle actually is number 1 until we got to the face-to-face demo. And the problem was not with the partner or the presentation. The problem was with Moodle is so different than every other LMS. I spent 2 weeks writing an entire presentation to explain and educate the entire company of why Moodle is different. So the post-demo outcomes with everything totaled, Big Tin Can was 1, and even with the failed attempt at the demo, Moodle was still at number 2. And I've got a minute left. And 5 for questions. So, out of the demo overall, all the information, Moodle came out number 1 with Big Tin Can and Miyagi neck and neck for the top. So the constraints that we were up against, which you see in a lot of foreign universities that I've worked with, is the devices in the stores had minimal storage. They couldn't download videos. The bandwidth was very limited because they had stores in malls. This was something I learned out of this project, that you cannot bring in your own bandwidth in some malls and situations in the US and in Canada. So they were at the mercy of whatever bandwidth they had. And because they were a sales-oriented company, the bandwidth was allocated to the POS and helping the customers, so it was minimal. So the solutioning considerations we went through was how to do offline support, local media server, reuse devices, and how to cache. So we ended up planning a multimedia content storage locally. And we utilized the Nook that were in every single store, so we didn't have to worry about buying new hardware. So where we are today, well, this was a few months ago, we went with Moodle and Big Tin Can were the 2 that beat out everybody. And you can see where Moodle is at 78% and 67% to Big Tin Can. And at the overall scores, it's only 1/100th of a point away. And I highlighted the top. So, and I am out of time. But to let you know where we are right now is they're in the final vendor selection. So that should be made by this month or next month if Big Tin Can or Moodle wins.
Please help me please help me thank Kathy for an amazing presentation. Oh my goodness. I love seeing some of those numbers. We don't have time for questions, but we are just getting started in the Moot. We're in our first morning of our full day. And so please make sure that you connect with Kathy over the next little bit and ask some questions that I'm sure you all have. So we're going to switch now.
I just want to say I have business cards, and if you want information, find me.
Excellent, thank you. And we'll just switch to our next presentation. Thank you. It's so hard to stop good conversations. You can see me wiggling around in the front seat and then trying to stand up and get a bit closer. We have 3 more presentations to go before our lunch break. And so we're looking forward to 3 more presentations. And then throughout lunch, we'll be just out here in the hall and then downstairs. And we'll have some refreshments as well. So as we move to our next presentation, please help me welcome Martin Dilberg from NC State. And we are going to be learning how we accept and evaluate feature requests for extending and modifying Moodle and other learning technologies. Help me welcome Martin.
Get a picture of you guys. So, just want to give you a little bit of background. Yes, thank you. Perfect. I don't know if you're recording. So, I'm from North Carolina State University, and we have approximately 40,000 students, 2,000 faculty, 2,500 faculty, and roughly 4,500 courses each semester, which translates to about 120,000 enrollments. And I'll give you my email addresses at the end, so if anybody would like me to send the slides to them, I'll be happy to. But we've been using Moodle since 2008. I think it was Moodle 1.9. We were evaluating, and then we switched to using completely Moodle. And finally, I guess maybe one of the 800 LMS systems was one of our homegrown ones. We finally retired that a few years ago, and so we've been strictly Moodle now. Now, one might ask the question, what are feature requests? And so one of the things that you have with open source software is, well, if it's open source, we have the code, what can we do? We can change it, right? So people think that, faculty, students, administrators think, well, it's a very easy matter. It's very simple to simply change the software. Let's go ahead and write this and do that and do the other thing. And they don't realize the subtleties of the issues, such as core modifications and upgrades and things that you have to constantly maintain and deal with, and all sorts of other little issues and problems that arise. They don't understand the expense involved. So people will make requests for things like different functionality. Maybe they want a new PDF annotation tool, or something, being able to record video directly in, like with Poodle, or plagiarism checking with Turnitin. Variety of different functionality that they might want to be able to add to the system. There are frequently innovators who are trying to make things better. So they may want to say, well, can you make this work this way, or can you make the gradebook work that way? That seems to be one of our sticking points, is difficulties with the gradebook. They can be a leading indicator in the shifts of technology, what people are doing, new cutting edge types of things. So they may give you some insight to want to be able to add like maybe 3D on mobile devices, or something of that nature for a lab. Sometimes they are crazy and irrational. They neglect the fact that we are an ocean liner, and they think they're on a little speedboat, and we can simply change the system for their needs rather than for the entire university. So we've had requests to change the default settings. because it's more convenient for them to have something in a certain place because they use it a lot, and they neglect the fact that that will confuse everyone else. And then finally, there can just be simply a cry for help, or to relieve them from tedium. There may be issues such as tab order, so you want to enter grades. And I remember at one point in time in the Moodle gradebook, if you're entering grades and you hit tab to go to the next field or enter to go to the next field, it would take you across the student, not down the assignment. So it ended up being a lot of extra work, a lot of extra clicking for people with large classes. So that's some of the things that we do. Now, why do we have a formal process for this? I mean, I could just have people email me with, requests or please do this, please do that. And the reason is, we do have 2,500 faculty, and we wish to encourage their participation. We want to encourage their involvement. We have an entire governance structure, which I wasn't allowed to present on because I think some of the folks at Moodle.org were bored to hear about it. But the site that I'm going to direct you to afterwards has a lot of information about our governance, and you can find out more. But we are trying to encourage ownership and participation amongst our faculty. We don't want to be the organization that tells them what's best for them, because that's the surest way to fail. When you start telling your users, this is what you need to do, this is the tool you need to use, this is how it works, and you don't give them any voice, you're in a lot of trouble. You're going to have a lot of difficulty because they're going to rebel, they're going to give you a hard time, they're going to fight with you about it. And it's going to result in a lack of satisfaction. And then when the provost or whoever the university head hears about this, they're going to start to question your budget. And we don't want them doing that. So we want them to feel like they have ownership. Okay? I don't think. So, it also gives us a measure of how we're doing. So when people complain about things, when people are asking for different things, we have some idea that, okay, maybe we do have a problem, maybe we need to be thinking about this or doing something a little differently. So just to give you an idea, over the last 8 years that we've had a formal system, here are some numbers. We've had 455 feature requests. I will admit to something when we say 209 completed. I'm going to be a little honest with you and say that probably 40 or 50 of those we got from Moodle upgrades. So we didn't actually do the work ourselves. So we held on to the feature request long enough that Moodle.org came out with the next version, and magically what we were looking for, what seemed appropriate, was actually in there. But we still took credit for it. So that was a win in our book. So our users think we're fantastic. So the 23 that we have under review, we actually have a batch system. So each semester we look at things. The semester runs about 4.5 months. And we take one group, whichever's coming in the previous semester, we evaluate them. We're going to talk about that whole process, but those are currently being looked at and decided upon this semester. So let's go right to it. So what's the process? Well, got to have a little bit of bureaucracy. So here we go. So what we have is they come in, I do intake and clarification. So one of the things that I find that users like to do is they like to focus on the solution, not on the problem. So they will say, I want this tool, or can you add this plugin? And so the first thing that I will do is I will ask them, what are you trying to accomplish? Sometimes there's already something in Moodle that will do it. Sometimes there is a better solution. Sometimes there's an open source solution rather than something that we would have to pay for. So I always want to try to find out what the problem is. Let us try to help you find the right technology to solve the problem. So that's the first thing that we do. Then we have 3 committees that look at these things. And I kind of divide them up between the 3 committees so that we can move things more quickly. And they have 3 different focuses. So our best practices and support is made up pretty much of instructors and departmental support people, people who work to help faculty use technology. So they will take a look at it from the point of view, is this good teaching practice? Will this help people teach their class better? That type of stuff. The next one is customer needs and policy, and they look at it more from a university or bureaucratic point of view. They're more interested in Does it make sense from a policy point of view? Because we have a number of policies and procedures that we use. And is it going to be helpful to a particular department, a particular college, maybe a particular program? So for example, at one point in time, we had a great need for voice recording, particularly foreign language department and communications. No one else in the university did, so it was a fairly small and narrow purpose, but it was a very important one to those particular programs. So I forgot what we used before, but we ended up with Poodle, which is what we're using now. And the technical committee only looks at feasibility. Is this something that's possible to do? Would it be expensive or inexpensive to program or to complete? So, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we need to say. I don't think so. So, what are some of the takeaways that we have from this? I think the most important thing is transparency, is that we are open, we have a process, we publish all of our decisions, people can look and see what's going on, they can upvote each other's requests. We use a tool called User Echo, which is cost us about $100 a year to use. It's fairly small, but I would encourage you to find any kind of tracking, whether it's a ticket tracking or a support tracking type software to use for this. And this is available. Anybody at the NC State community can take a look at it. So all of our decisions, I write an explanation of why we made that decision. It obviously involves community engagement, which is very important to us, to keep people interested and interested in using Moodle so that the Canvas salesmen don't get to them. Empowering the faculty, they feel like they have the ability to get involved, to make changes, and to have some influence in where we're going with this thing. It's a fair process, at least we believe it's fair. I've had faculty members who disagree slightly. They feel that what is fair is if we say yes to them. But at least there is a process for it. They understand what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and what the situation is. It also keeps us sharp and responsive. We have to consider what our people are trying to do. We have to answer to them. We are the tail, not the dog, if you understand what I mean. So we're not here deciding how people get educated. We're here to help the faculty do the education. Okay? It is, however, very time consuming. It takes up a fair amount of time to sit down to figure out what these things mean, to discuss them, to go over them, to debate, to go through a process, to provide feedback back. I wouldn't even begin to calculate how many man hours, maybe 100, 150 hours a semester of people's time goes into this, which is quite expensive. It's also bureaucratic. It takes us a long time to decide. I mean, imagine that if you put in a feature request now, you will not hear until May of 2020. So that doesn't seem to work very well. And for many people, it sets heightened expectations. There are many faculty members who believe that if they ask for something, they're going to get it. And, so we have to be the bearers of bad news. So one of the things that we're looking towards doing, and let me just, so people can copy the URL, if you go to wolfware.ncsu.edu/SOPs, you can get a full documentation of our process. And if you email me, I'll be happy to send you a copy of our slides. And there's quite a bit of other information there about SOPs for other things, such as what sort of course content can go there. We have different servers, who's allowed to use what, and on and on. But we are trying to go to a more agile process. So one of the things that occurs to me is that why do we, if something seems obvious and appropriate, if we agree internally within my unit that this is a good idea, why don't we just do it? If we're going to say yes to the customer, why make the customer wait 8 or 9 months to get an answer? So I'd like to ask the audience now, what do you folks do with requests? We'll give you the microphone. Sure. Come on down.
Yeah, we have something similar, but we have 6 batches a year. So we have maybe not a huge amount in one batch, but yeah, we talk more about the issues and the requests.
Okay. So
And
you're already a little more agile than we are.
yes, we are, but I think you do more in 2 batches a year, maybe. When I see the amount of your feature requests that you had.
Good. So,
Did you think to make more batches? You said no.
we used to do it, the first iteration was we did it continuously. When they came in, they would go into the next meeting of these committees. And that ended up taking all of the committee's time then. Because every month, all those committees did was talk about feature requests, rather than some of the other issues that governance that we try to talk about. So we found it to be time consuming to have a rolling entrance, to have, continual entrance of feature requests and evaluate them right away. So you do need some kind of a batch system so that you have a break from it. So, anybody else? I'll play Phil Donahue.
We don't get nearly as much as a feature request as you do, but when we get those, we discuss it internally with the Moodle team, and then we look it up from the Moodle tracker. And most of the time there's also already a tracker issue there. So then we just contact the customer, the teacher, the educator that this is under discussion in the Moodle tracker, and we'll keep tabs on it and report back in a year or two. So that, and
those are some of our declines.
But I mean, I like to communicate to people that this is an open source project and there's a tracker for these things, and so you kind of got the vibe from how that's so that you don't really emphasize like Moodle org's structure when discussing with your educators.
Right.
We do the exact opposite. We always keep talking about how this is an open source project and there's a like transparent tracker where you can discuss these things.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So you're right, we don't emphasize the resources available on Moodle.org. And one of the reasons why we don't is because we find that faculty misuse it. So a lot of times I will get somebody that will say, I want that plugin. Now, they don't understand that the first thing you need to do when you look at a plugin is to see when it was last maintained. Okay? And 9 times out of 10, I don't know why, they pick an orphaned one. So that's a bit of a problem. And I think that the Moodle tracker is also a little more than from a technology point of view, than they're capable of handling. So occasionally, if it's a faculty member that I know and I understand, I will actually link sometimes to a Moodle tracker issue, or I will mention that the plugin isn't supported, but I'm kind of scared to let them loose on Moodle.org. I think they might confuse the rest of you. So I think it's just 2 different philosophies. Anybody else? So any questions?
Yeah, just add that when we get requests, we have a sandbox Moodle, and we tell them also about the age of the maintenance, but we also install the plugin and let them loose on it. And sometimes they back off because they're not interested after a while, and that solves the problem.
That's a good idea. I would be worried about the sandbox. I mean, I can see definitely for experimental purposes. I think that's fine. I would worry about them using a sandbox for actual student data. And that's one of the things, because we do have... Right, but they may try to just enroll their students and use it. Then you got it set up properly. That's a very good idea. Okay, anybody else? I think we have time for one more. Maybe you want to just shout? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was interested if it's a 2-way street. So at the Open University, we deal with feature requests, but we also have customers to come up with ideas and then try and find academics to put them into action. Do you see it from both perspectives?
So the question is, is it a 2-way street? Do we sometimes try to recruit faculty? And the answer is kind of. Typically what will happen is we have 1 or 2 faculty that are interested in something if we want to do something new, and then we'll go out and try to recruit some additional ones. But usually it's a faculty-generated type of thing. We occasionally will develop tools, so we've developed like an email tool that uses Google Groups or something, to go into Moodle. And for that, we'll then recruit, if that's something that's generated by our technical people, then yes, we will recruit some faculty to try it. But that's usually very few of those. Much more of them are coming in from the faculty. I think I got time for one more. Not that anybody.
I think he's first. Just once I navigated this bureaucracy and the gods have deemed my request acceptable, when can I expect to actually see it deployed?
That is a great question. So when can you expect to see it? The answer is, I don't know.
Oh boy.
So seriously, the problem there then becomes resources. So if it's something like a plugin, it'll happen usually pretty quickly. We try to limit our major upgrades to just when we're just in between semester breaks, but sometimes we'll slip something in, depending on what it is. So if the plugin is usually going to happen right away, if it's a small modification, it might be a month or two. And if it's a large modification, I am embarrassed to admit this, but I will admit we've had some on the books for as long as 4 years.
It's been approved, but it's in development.
It's hoping for development.
Okay.
It really depends. Once it's in development, it's going to happen pretty quickly. It'll be within a semester. But, we're writing checks here that we may not have the resources to cash, and that's kind of the problem. So.
I was going to ask, how big is your team?
I'm going to give you approximate numbers. I think we have 6 developers, 2 system administrators, help desk, and traders. So it's fairly decent size. So we're not saving money by going open source, but we're getting what we want. All right, thanks very much.
Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. The wonderful thing about a Global Moot is I have had the opportunity to go to a bunch of MoodleMoots around the world, and it is so exciting to see so many familiar faces. And if you're walking around and socializing during our breaks, and please be sure just to come up and introduce yourself. And we have some badges downstairs that you can use as your little conversation starters. And we can share more information and continue that connection. So we're going to be moving on to our next presentation, and I am very happy to welcome Dr. Urmila Pohl, and we're going to be hearing about active learning approach, H5P activity in Moodle. So please help me welcome Dr. Urmila Pohl.
You need to do the announcement about telling people to move down and fill out the gaps. Yes.
As we have more people coming in, if you could please move and fill in the empty chairs. Just as more people come in, then we don't have to turn anybody away, and we have plenty of seating for everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Urmila Pohl. I am working as an assistant professor in Department of Computer Science, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, Maharashtra, India. Today I would like to discuss active learning approach, H5P activity in Moodle. Active learning is the key concept of collaborative design and practice. Collaborative educational design and practice. It is motivate to learner, and learner participate in the learning process because of active learning approach. Therefore, the H5P is one of the way to implement active learning approach. Active learning approach builds knowledge and understanding of the student. Active learning approach develops knowledge, apply high-level analytical skills, critical thinking. It develops into students. Therefore, H5P is a free and open source content collaboration framework based on JavaScript. It is HTML abbreviation for HTML5 package. It aims to make it easy for everyone to create. Everyone can create, share and reuse interactive HTML5 content. If you have websites, in Moodle, WordPress or Drupal, you can directly install plugin and then you can implement the H5P activity. Otherwise, you can directly go with H5P Cloud and implement, create your own content in H5P and then embed into website, your any website which is compatible with the H5P. Advantages of H5P, it is easy to create, anybody can create, share content seamlessly across any H5P capable site, reuse and modify content in your browser, mobile friendly content and free to use. It is a completely open technology and supported by the Moodle community. Here, how to use that H5P? Nobody knows how to create that, our content, which want to we share to everybody. Create a free account on h5p.org. Go for h5p.org, create your account, and then that account create any activity or resource in Moodle. Then select a resource or activity into which you are going to insert the H5P content. Any of them that display HTML blocks will work. Set up your HTML page, HTML editing on, and then you can embed the code which you created. When you open that h5p.org, it will show like this. Create free account. Go for your account is not there. That you have to create that account. After creating that account, so many H5P content types are there. Some of the important content types are course presentation, interactive, video, memory game, so many fill in the blanks, multiple choice. These are the useful content types as per the teachers according to teacher's point of view. Go to H5P account. After creating your account, you create your account and then create your content using H5P content types. Then it will show the content here. Suppose that activity is already in H5P after creating. Then how to connect with the Moodle? You can go that open that activity in h5p.com. If you created that activity, select that activity, open that activity. After opening, it will show embed word in below that slide. That activity you can embed. Press that and then copy that code which is required in the Moodle. Moodle HTML block is there. HTML compatible block. If you create any page activity, then you can embed that code. After embedding that code, it will show the activity which are created in H5P. It will automatically come into the Moodle. After saving that, it is one of the activity or resource in the Moodle. It shows in the last slide. Then, after if H5P activity, if you are available your Moodle site, then go for installation of H5P plugin. If you are administrator or common user, then logging into as an administrator, site administration plugins in the select install plugins. Install plugins are there. From install plugins, you have to search any plugin from Moodle plugins directory. You can search for H5P plugin and then install that. After installing, install now, it will show, it will update the database of Moodle and you can create. It is after install successfully installation of that, it will one of the part of that Moodle activity. Here, after installation, it will show when you select that activity, H5P activity, when you add resource or activity from Moodle. Everybody knows how to use Moodle. Then it is a part of the activity. Then it will show all the content types, multiple choice, course presentation. Already all the libraries are not installed at that time when you open that. After opening, it will show so many content types, interactive video, course presentation, branching scenario, virtual tour, image hotspots, drag the words, multiple choice question, memory game, fill in the blanks, arithmetic quiz, mark the words, and so many important content types are there which are used as according to students or preparation of material content. Here interactive video is there. After creating interactive video, it shows the interaction multiple choice quiz on that slide. It is the pop-up of that interaction into video which learner watching, when learner watches the video, it will show the multiple choice quiz. that is interactive video allows the learner to interact with the video. And then post presentation, slide based presentation, it allows learner to add quizzes, image, audio, text, any you can add it, and it is already inbuilt with the Moodle 3.8 version. After releasing in last month end, it will release, and it is a part of Moodle 3.8 activity, not necessary to install separately. Therefore, drag and drop is there. According to task, you can drag the words and images, text and images. Find multiple hotspots. Find the hotspots. Here you can identify as per the task and find the hotspot. Image juxtaposition. Here interactively you can compare two images at a time. Two images interactively before and after you can show students. Guess the answer. Then it will show audio recorder. Mark the words. You can mark the words. You can give any paragraph, and as per the task, a student can select the words, mark the words as per the task, and you evaluate the performance of that student in mark the words. Timeline, you can create so many events. Timeline is a chronological order. You can add a timeline. Here multiple choice questions. So many questions are there. After attending that multiple choice, you can evaluate the performance of students in multiple choice. Like on memory game, also pair the games, words and images. Here, these are the important content types as per the Moodle teacher. Interactive video, post presentation, drag drop, find multiple hotspots, mark the words, audio recorder, guess the answer, timeline, multiple choice, and memory game. These are very important to prepare the presentations for lectures. Then starting using H5P in Moodle. When you open that Moodle, it is a part of Moodle activity, interactive content. Then select that interactive content. After opening that, it will show all the content types. Multiple choice, fill in the blanks, so many content types are there. If you want to create interactive video, then you use interactive video, and then first it is need to install, and after installing, it will show create content and upload. Create content, then you install first interactive video. After installing that, it will show the use button. It is ready to use. Interactive video, we want to create interactive video here. After clicking that, it will show three tabs: upload, embed video, add interactions, and summary task. These three tabs are this is the workflow for interactive video. In upload embed video, you have already one video clip which you want to pop up the interactions on video clip, which learner watches and interact with the video. Then add interactions and summary tasks. Here upload embed video, you can give URL also from YouTube. Then add interactions, so many interactions are there. Text, label, so many interactions, label, text, table, link, image, statements, single choice set, multiple choice, true false questions, fill in the blanks, drag drop, mark the words, crosswords, navigation hotspot, so many interactions are there. You use that interaction for the video clip. After that, so many information you have to fill that as per the interaction. Suppose label is there, then give the name of label. You can pause the video, start time, end time for the video, and give label. Multiple choice questions, any interaction you can pop up on the video. After completing this, I prepared one video, and last summary task is there. You have to give the summarized task for the here. One Android lecture is there, and that lecture you have to use. Create Android application. One of the label is there which shows details about that. Then teacher interaction is there. Select correct. You can give multiple choice. Select correct answer. One answer questions also, and give the evaluate the feedback of students. For more details, it will insert URL for more details. When students want to read more about the information, you have to check the knowledge or check the performance of our lecture. What students will understand from the lecture. Before 3.8 it is possible, but after release of 3.8 it is a part of Moodle. You can directly generate any interactive video course presentations from the Moodle. After understanding the lecture. It will lastly summarize tasks is required for the interactive video. You can give summarize task. Any questions? What I learned, I am new for that H5P. What I learned, I discuss with you.
Excellent.
Any questions?
We have time for one quick question.
I don't know much about H5P. My question is, if I create a content in the cloud and I use it in a course in my Moodle, is it also available for everyone in the world, or can I just?
Available.
It is.
Which enrolled users are there for your course?
It's available for the enrolled.
Enrolled users.
What about the rest of the work that enters the cloud? They will see my creation or not?
But H5P you can show all the. It is public from H5P.
Excellent.
Any questions?
We're going to have to move on to our next one very shortly. We can just finish up. And does anyone need the microphone for a question? Thank you very much. As we move to our final session before lunch, a few things to remember. Please have a look at your app for the Global MoodleMoot, and if you keep scrolling all the way down, there's a section there where you can provide feedback. And so this is really valuable for us as we look ahead and we get some ideas and inspiration from some of the things that you're interested in and want to find out more information about. Part of going through all of the proposals is also considering your voice and your perspective on what you like to see. And so please take a few minutes and go back and provide some feedback on some of those presentations that you've seen today. As you're switching seats, if you could please move over and fill in the empty seat beside you, then that way as people move in from other sessions, there's plenty of space for everyone. Thank you.
about branded Moodle app that we're using.
Thank you. Can I have a show of hands of anyone that uses the Moodle app? Okay. Which of those are branded? Oh, okay. Cool. So we did have a lovely presentation for you. It might have to just be verbal. Okay, we're just going to start without the slides, but if we manage to get them up, then we will. I'm going to hand over to Louise.
Thank you. We're just going to start without the slides. We're just going to have one more thing. Okay, I think I'm going to start because I know I'm going out for lunch. So we don't want to make everybody late. So I'm Louise Olney and we're from the Open University in the UK. And we're going to continue the story of developing our Moodle app. And we started at the MoodleMoot Manchester earlier this year. So we did have lovely slides for you, but they're not going to show. So you can't see the evolution that we've made, but I'm hoping we're going to be able to show you that in a minute. So we used all the research that we did that we shared with you in Manchester, and we have designed and developed and now we've successfully launched a branded app for the OU. And we've done this as a companion to their module websites. So it allows students to download their content and work offline. Students can listen to audio, watch their video. They can mark off their progress against different course activities. They have key dates and access to their study planner at all times, wherever they are. So I will show you the evolution when I can. And what it has been a real journey. We'd like to share 3 top takeaways with you, which I would do if I had them on the screen. But they are really to find out what users really, really want, to start small, and to plan and plan again. And you can use all of our top takeaways if you're thinking of developing an app with your students as well. So we're going to focus on these 3 top takeaways throughout the lesson. So the first top takeaway is to find out exactly what your users want. Not what you think they want, not what your institution thinks they want, because that's often the case, but actually what they really want and what they really need. So the Open University is the largest university in the UK. It's open to all and it welcomes about 180,000 students. They have a variety of different educational backgrounds and they have many reasons for studying with us. So the demographic that we have is absolutely huge. Hey!
Here's a clicker for you.
Thank you. Alright, so this is the evolution. So this is from the unbranded Moodle mobile app to the OU Study branded app that we've developed. So these are our top takeaways, and this is what we're going to concentrate on. So you find out exactly what your users want, start small and plan again. So who are our users? As I said, we've got a really massive demographic of all of our students who study with us. So we needed to make sure that we did our research. So we spoke to users from different locations, from different learning institutions as well, so not just from the OU, different ages, technical skills, backgrounds, and at different points, importantly, within their learning journey. And our top takeaway here was to make sure that you speak to a range of users in order to find exactly what they want.
And this really has been key to the success of what we've delivered to our users. So we've also engaged with our users in many ways. We've done this through direct feedback through our VLE, workshops, surveys, diary studies, observation, user testing, and focus groups. And it was from this breadth of research that we found themes in their requirements, and it really helped us prioritise. So we've really identified single things that we could do really, really well. So our main takeaway here is that digital is great, but nothing beats face-to-face conversations with students. And it's that way that you can really explore exactly what they need and talk it through with them. So what did our users want after we'd spoken to them? This word cloud represents the main requirements that came through, and they really came up with a massive range of things that they wanted the app to do for them. And our backlog currently has over 700 items on it, so we really did have to prioritise those developments. But users often forget and simply expect certain functionality to just be there, like security, performance, and storage. So our takeaway here is don't forget the boring stuff. So you really need to consider all of those requirements whenever you're considering developing this app. So I'm now going to hand over to Lena, who's going to talk through our second major takeaway. And thank you for your patience.
Thanks, it's still a job. Cool, can you hear me okay? Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to talk through how starting small with lots of our developments really helped us focus in on the students' needs and actually be more responsive to what they want as well. Which one is it? That one? Fantastic. Okay, so before we built anything, we tested the concept with our students. We'd normally do this with wireframes or sketches and things like that, but we already had a beautiful Moodle mobile app developed by Han and the team, which we could use with students to test their reaction to having a study app. So this was much more realistic than normal for us, so we got a really good idea if they liked it, if they could see it fitting in with their study habits. And by not rushing into building anything first, it basically gave us the confidence that we knew what our students want and we tested the assumptions. So our takeaway here is to really test the concept before you build anything. It's much cheaper. So our minimal viable product came out of the list that Louise just mentioned. We had this backlog of 700 items to filter through. So we worked with our developers to really choose what to build. Now, our Moodle site is really heavily customised, so unfortunately we can't use everything that the Moodle mobile team have done, but it did give us the opportunity to really ask our students what they wanted and hone in on that. So even though we had this really long list, we ended up focusing on 3 things. Key dates, so getting access to key tutorials, assessments, having access to the learning materials, and being able to download those things so they have access to them at any time. So there was lots of things we could have done, but we decided to focus on the things that the students could not do without in order to get started. And that's allowed us to release an app that's usable, but gives us lots of room to grow. So we actually worked really closely with the Moodle mobile team, because we've been testing and using this app now for about 18 months, nearly 2 years. And so an area that we focused on was download management, because our users did quite a lot of testing with it and we had lots of ideas, which luckily the team were happy to work with us with. So I'm just going to talk you through lots of small changes that we made to build into that. So the first thing we did was, in the study planner part of our website, in the Moodle app, the downloads aren't on as standard. So the first thing we did was force downloads to be shown in the study planner. Sounds like a small thing, but it meant for our users they actually understood they could download it. Whereas if they didn't see the cloud, they didn't realise. So they missed one of the major, unique selling points of our app. So we forced them on. Second thing we did is that we noticed that when students were actually downloading the content, they'd click on the cloud, and because the cloud disappeared, they then started looking for a PDF or something on their phone. They didn't realise it was in the app. So we just basically added a green confirmation cloud. And that really just helped them realise, oh, it's in the app. Okay, I get it. So small thing, big impact. The other thing we looked at quite a lot was when students were testing the app, they wanted to be able to understand how to delete or manage the storage that was in there. We found that they didn't always find their way to the settings menu, which is where you can go to delete the content. So our developers again submitted a review which looks at actually being able to delete the downloads at a slightly more granular level. So rather than just having to do it for the whole app, they can now delete by module, by week in our study planner, or by individual activity. And this is also accessible from the study planner as well, so they don't have to go to settings to do it. So those things just, again, help the user understand how to use it without having to read the instruction manual or getting frustrated. And then finally, just on downloads, we also did a little bit of testing around the language that was used, and we just found with our students, they didn't always make the connection between the storage area and the clouds that were on the study planner. So again, we just tested a few versions with them. We asked them if managed storage, managed downloads, a box, a cloud, what made them think of actually going in and managing the stuff they'd saved offline. And for us, a cloud icon was better because it linked up with the cloud that was on the study planner, and they seemed to recognize downloads, probably because of things like Netflix and Spotify, that's what they use. So the kind of moral of this little story that I've just been telling here is that we really benefit from doing a little bit, testing it, doing a little bit, testing it, because if we tried to do all of that at once, we probably would have got it wrong. But by doing it bit by bit, we really got to check the assumptions. Okay. So just moving on from the developments, now going to the launch, we're looking here at managing expectations of users. The main point here is basically don't oversell it. We just focused on the 3 key things we were selling: learning materials, due dates, downloading it. Our students want it to do everything. It doesn't. We were just open and honest about it. And hopefully by doing that, we've saved a lot of disappointed users. And then finally, again on starting small, we have around 500 modules running at any time at the Open University. But we didn't want to launch to everyone all at once, because if there were bugs, we wanted a chance to catch them before they went out to everyone. So we managed to get 21 supportive module teams to work with us to actually be our early adopters. And this has meant that we've launched to around 14,000 students instead of around 200,000 students, so a much smaller group. And so our main tip here is just don't release to everyone at once if you can avoid it. It saves a lot of headache if things go wrong. Not that it has, but just in case. So I'm just going to hand over to Sharon now, who's going to talk us through the last takeaway.
Hello, good afternoon. So finally, we're going to have a little look at the importance of planning, particularly around the app release. As with all projects, we had lots of plans, lots of schedules. Most of our strands were running side by side, and nearly all of them were dependent on each other. Alongside managing that, we were also keeping an eye on changes to the Moodle mobile app and any planned updates to Apple or Android devices. We knew where we were heading, we had a time frame in which to get there, but we didn't have a fixed deadline. As with all projects, things change. That's perfectly normal. In September, things changed much more quickly and in a much more unexpected way than we'd actually planned for. We ended up having 3 app builds in 1 week, and both Apple and Android changed their publishing and approval processes in their stores. Thankfully, our flexible endpoint meant that we had some hard decisions to make, such as which version of the app that we were testing were we actually going to release. It meant those decisions needed to be quick, but we didn't need to rush them. So the thing to remember here, as I'm sure you all know, plans don't always go to plan, but you can still get there in the end. So our app has been live for 49 days, so not long. After the release, we didn't send the communications out straight away. It gave us another small window of opportunity for doing some confidence tests. Looking at the natural downloads patterns was really insightful. The number of downloads was going up, the number of users logging in was increasing, and we weren't doing anything. Our biggest group of users so far are actually only students who are not part of the early adopter cohort. We had anticipated this earlier on in the project, by walking through different scenarios for releasing an app in the public space. For those students, we have specific messaging that explains why their course isn't available. And for all of the students, we've put in links to the mobile website versions of their course websites and other key sites, providing easy access with one small tap on the screen. Whilst we do develop for specific use cases, for us importantly, it's trying to make sure that every change we make adds value to all users. So, our numbers as of last week when we made the presentation, just under 3,000 downloads, just over 2,000 users logged in, and 5% of our students registered on those early adopter courses were actually logging into the app. We can see in the data that students are actually starting to work through their courses. So our slow release was planned. The communications we sent out did generate some interest. In mid-October, we had a massive spike in new users. It wasn't the communications to our tutors because those students weren't on those courses. We did wonder if it was 81 course start dates. Were our users actually just searching the stores for an app because they expected us to have one? Most likely, it was actually a Facebook post by a student that we found last week that was posted that morning. So Facebook is a good communication. We monitor our feedback, our store reviews and any issues or calls to the help desk daily. We did want to share the piece of nice feedback we received last month from a student who's having a good experience so far. We hope to see more of those. We are a little obsessed by the data at the moment. I could have spent my 15 minutes on more graphs, but I wasn't allowed. Basically, we're excited to find out what happens next. We don't know what's going to happen next, so we're looking at the data, we're looking at what our users are telling us, and we just hope they like it and it works for them. So, we hope you found this overview of the very long project quite interesting. We're happy to take questions about our top takeaways or any part of the project. We do have quite a lot to say, so if you see us about afterwards and you have more questions, let us know. Just want to say thank you for listening and a massive thank you again to the Moodle mobile team because we couldn't have done this without you. Thank you.
Any questions? Is everyone hungry? Does everyone go to lunch? Yeah. Oh, sorry, there's a question.
Yeah, so thanks for the presentation, really interesting. I'm just curious, how do you see, regarding the future, the relationship between the Moodle site using mobile phone browser and the app? How do you see this? Are you going to try to converge the experience or go emphasize the app in the future, or see the app as an interface until offline storage and notifications come to the game, or I'd love to hear your thoughts.
So we actually had a massive project which looked at making our Moodle site mobile responsive a few years ago. So we focused on that first. So that came a few years ago, and now we're just adding the app on top of that. The app for us is very much a companion to the website. So for our students, they're going through a lot of heavy content. We deliver all of our training online, all our learning online. So we generally go to the desktop first and then use the mobile for when you're out and about. So over the next couple of years, we're going to be focusing on things like forums and notifications to sort of really enhance the app benefits. But like I said, we see it as a family of things. It won't be one over the other in that sense, but it's definitely desktop. This is a companion for us.
First of all, I think you did an amazing work at the university, and I think you're a really good example of how apps can be changed to the local needs of a particular university. And I think you're a great university which has many particular needs. I would be really interested which of these special editions which you have made, for example, the cloud and the download, have been pushed back upstream to the core application or to the core Moodle app.
Yeah, most of them.
Back upstream. So all the work which you have done is also available for the broader audience.
Yes, and actually, Sam, developer who developed most of the download stuff, he works really closely with, and Mark as well. Most of what we do, we try and push back into the community for everyone to use. So yeah. Thank you.
Just a question about the process. Did I get it right? You started on an empty, so really you asked the student, what do you really want? What would you have done if it came out, yes, we want to have a connection between our local administration service, something Moodle app isn't providing, something additional. You would have ended up in developing your own app, or what would you have done?
I mean, potentially. I mean, we really just wanted to go with a blank canvas. So we started with feedback, and actually the presentation from the MoodleMoot in Manchester goes through all of the research we did previously, if anyone wants to see that. But we started with feedback, and then we had an open page for workshops and things. Luckily, most of what the students wanted was quick access to their study materials. But of course, a lot of them did ask about admin and things like that. That's not within our scope, but that's why we added in the study links so they can get access to those websites quickly. So for us, it wasn't about trying to provide an app that did everything, but it is definitely working as a wraparound for their experience. So it's pointing them to other things they need quickly on the go. But we've also fed some of those ideas into other projects that are going on in the university. So that we have lots of other places that look after the admin side of things. So we'll be supporting them to make developments too. So but we might have been at risk of them saying they want something completely different. But luckily we weren't there. Good, no worries. Any more questions? Everyone looking forward to lunch?
Well, thank you very much for your patience while you're
Yeah, sure. It's even better if you have it open in the laptop. I'll give you
I'm going to be around it, and I'm very happy that you are happy. We also. I'm happy.